Hello and welcome to the 2020 NFL Draft Preview Show presented to you by the Nuts and Bolts Sports Network and also powered by Marissa Cali and the Live on Social Now. I am Joe Cardoza, founder and owner of Nuts and Bolts Sports, joined today by one of my senior writers and NFL Draft guru, Mr. Jeff Barnes. Just want to talk a little bit about NFL Draft upcoming, some of the players we're looking for, some of the needs that teams might have. And instead of just having Jeff and I do all this, we're going to have the help of the staff from Nuts and Bolts Sports that's been covering the NFL. They're going to talk about the teams they cover, what they're looking for in terms of players, prospects, and also with this being the first virtual draft, some exciting things to think about that as well. To kick off the 2020 NFL Draft with the first pick, number one overall this season, is going to be the Cincinnati Bengals. And tonight we're going to have joining us to talk a little bit about what you should expect from the Cincinnati Bengals. Is going to be NBS sports writer, NFL enthusiast as well, Dominic, joining us tonight. Talk a little bit about what we should expect from the Cincinnati Bengals. What's going on, Dominic? Thanks for joining us tonight. How you doing, man?
Hey, I'm good. How are you doing, Joe? Hey, Jeff, how you doing?
Fantastic. Doing fantastic. So, man, number one overall pick is usually not a good thing. There's a reason why you got the number one pick. It's because you had the worst record in the NFL. And for this season, that's going to be the Cincinnati Bengals. So, looking at this team, of course, Andy Dalton's out the door. You had A.J. Green that was hurt all year last year. Joe Mixon, kind of the bright spot of that squad. What do you think the needs are and some of the players you're looking that might be potential players for the Bengals this season?
With Cincinnati Bengals, it's really open and shut case. It's Joe Burrow. They need a quarterback. Andy Dalton, it was nice having him, Red Rifle, he'd had his years, but they're ready to move on. New head coach, new staff and everything. They're ready to really just kind of completely rebuild and start anew. Joe Burrow is definitely the guy. I mean, he's coming off of the greatest probably single season in college football history. So it's hard, especially with him also being an Ohio kid. It's hard for me to see them going anywhere other than Joe. Tua definitely is a great prospect, but his injury history probably scares some teams off. And I don't see them trading back just because it would take a king's ransom for them to move down in this draft. So Joe definitely has to be the pick.
Yeah, I've heard rumors about them possibly be thinking about trading. I'm with you. I can't see them doing that at all. It just makes no sense for Cincinnati to make that kind of move. And I mean, with Burrow being, it's almost like the stars are aligned. Joe Burrow being a guy from the Ohio area, the Bengals having the number one pick. I mean, if you can't get this one right, I'm not sure you can get it right. What about you, Jeff? What's your take on Cincinnati?
He's exactly right. I mean, right now, unless there's a surprise at the last minute, all signs point to Joe Burrow. I think after that is when it's going to start to get interesting. But right now, you look at the situation, they're ready to move on from Dalton. They're only holding on to him because either it's like a trade or it's insurance. But either way, right now, it looks like they're moving on, and it's going to be Joe Burrow. I don't see anybody else going at number one.
Yeah, no, exactly right. Now, with this being the first ever virtual draft for any of us, Dominic, I just wanted to ask you, what is like the one thing you're looking forward to most with this virtual draft? Is it an example would be like we were talking about it earlier, me and my friends, what are players going to wear? Do you dress up or do you really lounge out and rock sweats and t-shirts on a virtual draft? Do you invite people? I mean, social distancing is a real thing. How's that whole, the one thing you're looking most forward to with this new draft?
So the one thing that I am definitely looking forward to, and this is for all 32 NFL teams, is because when you're using technology and you're relying this much on it, it's bound to fail. So I want to see how teams react to, when you have, hey, my Wi-Fi cut out, or, oh, my camera battery went dead, and we have 30 seconds before we need to make this pick. What do we do? I know the NFL has put in, some kind of countermeasures with the landlines and emails and things like that. But just seeing the scramble of how these older general managers, a lot of them are dealing with technology and just kind of having to rely so much on it.
Appreciate that. Looking forward to your commentary on draft night, Dominic. Thanks so much for joining us tonight, and we'll talk to you down the road, sir.
Yep.
Up next, we have the Washington Redskins with the number 2 overall draft pick, and the Redskins are covered on NBS by Mr. Ryan Cooley, who joins us tonight. Talk a little bit about the Redskins and the number 2 overall pick. How's it going, Ryan?
Oh, pretty good. How about you guys?
Doing well, man. Let's get right to it, man. Number 2 overall draft pick, Washington Redskins. It's a brand new era. You got Ron Rivera, head coach, Jack Del Rio, defensive coordinator. The old regime is gone. The new regime is in. I'm sure you, like I have, been listening to a ton of rumors about the Redskins. Could it be pick? If you're the one holding the cards for the Washington Redskins, Who are you drafting?
Easy peasy Chase Young, best player in the draft, and I personally think the best player in the probably the last couple of drafts. He's that good. I mean, his nickname's the Predator. You don't get the nickname without being a pretty good player. So, yeah, I think they take Chase Young. That's what I think they're going to do. Ron Rivera, from the interviews and everything that I've been hearing, it sounds like they're going to take a best player available approach, which would obviously mean Chase Young. And I know a lot of people say, oh, they should trade back because they need a lot of help, which, I understand, but you have to realize they have to be able to receive those offers. And I'm not so sure they're getting that king ransom that people are just assuming they're getting, because the last couple of weeks I've been seeing a lot of concerns with Tua and teams not as high as we thought they were on him. So, are the Dolphins willing to trade up to 2 overall and give up a king's ransom for a quarterback they don't even really love that much? So, they have to be able to have that trade offer to trade back. So I think people are assuming they have that trade offer, but I don't think they do. So in that case, you just take Chase Young and move on.
That's not a bad consolation prize at all. How about that, Jeff?
It's going to be an interesting pick. Right now, it looks like they're going to stand in and pick, but don't rule out a trade, especially in the case of certain teams. With the Tua talk, you have to still take it with a grain of salt. At this point, everybody's trying not to show their hand. And with Tua Tagovailoa, you saw the recent pro day online. He's actually looking really, really good. Of course, nobody's teams have had their chance to get their doctors to him to verify how he is. But right now, what you're hearing what Tua is, now he's starting to slide. We heard that same talk with Mayfield a couple of years ago, and he went number 1. So right now, teams are in that chess match phase. Yeah, we think we're going to do this, but we're not. But if anybody has the ability to move up to number 2 and make the swap at Washington, it's Miami. And Miami is also in need of a quarterback. They have multiple first-round picks, and they don't have to trade any future picks in the future to get up to number 2. They're in the top 5 as well.
Yeah, that's an excellent point with you. The Miami Dolphins have a lot of ammunition this year. It's going to be interesting to see what they can do. Well, definitely thank you for joining us tonight, Ron. We appreciate it. Looking forward to draft night and having your input and your insight, sir. And we'll talk to you soon.
All right, see ya.
And we're going to go back to the state of Ohio, talking about the Cleveland Browns, number 10 overall pick. And we are joined once again by our friend Dominic. Talk about the Cleveland Browns.
Yeah, so Cleveland, if you focus on everything that Cleveland has done this offseason, everything has been geared toward what can we do to make sure Baker Mayfield succeeds. So they finally went out and they got a competent head coach. They went out and they added Austin Hooper. They went out and they got Jack Conklin. They kept Kareem Hunt around for another year. Everything that they're doing is, look, that offensive line in front of you was not the greatest last year. You have a multitude of talent around you. You have a head coach. There's no reason you should not succeed in this system. When it comes to the draft, I think they're going to double down on the offensive line. Jack Conklin is amazing. I think there are a bunch of really good offensive linemen, guys like Mekhi Becton, out of Louisville, Jedrick Wills out of Alabama, Tristan Wirfs out of Iowa, all guys that I think could be in play. I think all 3 of them will end up going in the top 10. But I think Cleveland definitely doubles down on the offensive line, and they want to make sure Baker has time to sling it to either Odell, Jarvis, or whoever it may be.
Yeah, I kind of feel like at this point with the Cleveland Brown, like you said, it's all in. You got to push your chips to the middle of the table with Baker Mayfield. I mean, the guy's super talented. You saw the mess it was last year. I think we'd all agree that Freddie Kitchens had no business being the NFL head coach at all last year. Coordinator, maybe, but head coach, I mean, you could tell. I feel like that guy was sitting in his car on Sundays, writing down notes, trying to figure out what's he going to do, and just take the paper in on game day and hope for the best. It's like he was really overwhelmed and out of his league. And when you got Odell, Jarvis Landry, Kareem Hunt, you also were not even talking about Oz running back. His name escapes my name. Nick Chubb. There's no excuse for this team not to succeed. Now that you got the offensive mind from the Minnesota Vikings there, I think for the Browns, they didn't expect to be this high in the draft, but you're there, and you got to go for the best player available, but you got to go for the best offensive lineman available if you're the Browns. Do you agree, Jeff, or got a different take on Cleveland?
With Cleveland, there's going to be a lot of moving parts to this. They did a great job in the offseason. You see the list of free agents they brought in. Yes, Conklin does a great job for the offensive line. Adding another tackle does make sense. But also, if you've also heard, there are rumors of Beckham being traded again.
Traded, yeah. So
that's going to play out till draft day if it does happen.
Yeah.
Right? So if that's the case, and they plan on moving on from Odell Beckham Jr., don't be surprised if you hear the name Jerry Jeudy come into play. Is that or CD Lamb? Yeah. Any big receiver that can come in and contribute right away. All right. Also, don't be shocked if they at some point, if they're at 10, they're not going to take them there. But at some point, look tight end because they haven't been happy with David Njoku either. Mm-hmm. So, and there's been a bunch of guys they've looked at in free agency, but overall, there's going to be a lot of movement at 10 for them. They may trade back, believe it or not. So it's not nothing's etched in stone at 10 for the Browns right now. That is one of the most up in the air picks.
Yeah, I would definitely say because they weren't expecting to be this high in the draft, and they know what they have in their roster. They're just bad coaching and some injuries and bad luck. I think there's a little to no pressure on Cleveland, in my opinion. And like Dominic was saying, offensive line is so deep. I hate to use the term of can't lose, but you almost can't lose with the prospects you have in O-line this year in the draft.
Absolutely.
Definitely Cleveland for sure. For sure. So are you buying or are you not buying these rumors about Odell Beckham Jr. possibly being traded, Dominic? I'm not buying it.
I mean, it's tough. I can't see them moving on from him after 1 year. Especially like you have a young quarterback. You want to make sure he has a top end talent. Like you don't want to do what Houston did and just trade away to DeAndre Hopkins. When you have a young quarterback that needs a top tier weapon like that. It would be interesting, but I can't see them really moving on from Odell after 1 year.
Yeah, I would definitely be shocked. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Dominic, and breaking down the Browns with us. We appreciate it, man. We'll talk to you later on down the line.
Yep.
So next up, talking about the Denver Broncos, we are joined by NBS writer and contributor, Mr. Keith Richards.
Hey, how's it going?
Doing well. How you doing, sir?
Good. Excited about this draft and some sports finally.
Hey, I'll take whatever I can get, man. Whether it be horse, 2K.
I don't know about that horse. Well,
I can only have so many distant replays, man. So we're talking about the Denver Broncos, number 15 pick overall. Last season was kind of all over the place. I mean, they thought they could dip into Father Time and get Joe Flacco in there, and it was not successful at all. So with the Broncos being at number 15, what do you see them going for in the draft this year?
I mean, finally, it's for the first time in it's got to be 4 or 5 years now. They don't have to worry about quarterback, so they don't have to spend a high pick on a quarterback. Their two largest needs are going to be cornerback and wide receiver, with them trading away Emmanuel Sanders last year and Chris Harris Jr. signing somewhere else. At that 15 spot, it's not likely they're going to get one of those great receivers like the guys out of LSU. So I think the best thing they can do is look at corner then, and CJ Henderson should be there out of Florida at 15.
So you're thinking the Denver Broncos are going to go cornerback? Okay, all right. Yeah, I definitely understand.
That's what they should do. It's John Elway. I don't know what he will do. That's what they should do.
Yeah, he has proven he's kind of the Wild Wild West theory when it comes to being a GM, man. What are your thoughts on the Broncos there, Jeff, in this draft coming up?
Well, corner is definitely one of the things. You never have enough corners in today's NFL with the spread offenses. They did a great job of getting A.J. Bouye from Jacksonville, so that kind of fills a need there. So they can kind of wait on corner. They don't have to go first round and reach if they don't feel there's a corner in that range. There'll be plenty of defensive linemen in that range, though. Don't forget about a Javon Kinlaw. So there'll be plenty of guys on the board that can supplement that defensive line and that defense overall to give them more weapons.
No, that's a good point. I didn't think about that at all. Now, the one question we're asking everybody who's hopping on the pod today, Keith, is with this being the first ever virtual draft, what's the one thing you're looking most forward to in this draft? It's a whole new world for all of us.
I'm looking to see what people are going to wear. I'm really praying someone pulls a Stevie Johnson and wears a white tank top. Just go all out.
So you don't think not too many people are going to be suited and booted on draft day this year, do you?
They probably will. Just if it's just one person, just wears the white tank top, pull some jorts out.
I think you're going to see it. You're going to see it. Somebody's going to have some slides on, some Jordan basketball shorts, surrounded by people. And you also got to think about social distancing. These guys got to be smart. It can't be you and the whole neighborhood. You got to have like mom, dad, an aunt, and an uncle. You got to keep it 10 and under. 10 and under.
Essentially, just don't do what Dak did.
Yeah, exactly. The first person that has like 30 people in the crowd, we're going to forget they were the number 4 pick overall. All we're going to talk about is how 30 people were crammed into this house. They were all on top of each other, and how could he? So it should be interesting. It's gonna be a fun night. Thanks so much for joining us tonight, Keith, and talking about the Denver Broncos. We're looking forward to having your input on draft night.
All right, see you.
So up next, we're gonna have ultimate Philadelphia Eagle fan and Nuts and Bolts Sports contributor, Mr. Thomas Brown. Thomas, how you doing, my friend?
Doing good. How about you? How we doing?
Can't complain. We're talking about the Philadelphia Eagles, number 21 overall pick in this year's draft. At the number 21 spot, what are your expectations for Philadelphia?
You see, it's interesting because our offseason, especially in free agency, we addressed our secondary as far as getting Darius Slay from the Detroit Lions, which was pretty great for us. We addressed our linebacking core a little bit, but yet not a single thing on the offense. Jason Peters left, future Hall of Famer. He's gone. We're getting a returning Deshaun Jackson. We don't know how he's going to be in terms of his health. We got a returning Alshon Jeffrey, apparently. We don't know how he's going to turn out. He just came off of surgery. So nothing's been done to the offense yet. I'm looking forward to see what they do on offense for this pick.
What's your take on the Philadelphia Eagles going into the 2020 draft, Jeff? Another one is like Cleveland, who I think didn't expect to be where they were last year.
Well, with the Eagles, it's definitely going to be offense. As he talked about, if you look at the free agent acquisitions, it's been the defensive side of the ball. They tried to plug as many holes in free agency on defense so they don't feel pressed when it comes to the draft. They can feel free to plug away. At this point in the draft, there'll be plenty of wide receivers on the board, and everybody knows how bad the receiving core was by the end of the season for the Philadelphia Eagles. Yes, you have Deshaun Jackson. What we've seen the last 2 years is he is often injured, so you can't rely on him to be ready for 16 games. Alshon Jeffrey's still there, but after that, there are a lot of questions. You don't know what you're getting out of Arcega-Whiteside, so don't be surprised they pull the trigger on one of these receivers. Brandon Ayuk, Laviska Shenault. There'll be plenty of receivers. Once you get to round 20, there's going to be a run on receivers at some point in the first round. So they'll find themselves either sitting in and picking one or moving up for the guy that really won a couple of spots. So at some point, there's going to be a run on receivers.
Yeah, this draft is real. 2 places it's deep is wide receiver and offensive line. And like I said, I hate to use the phrase can't lose, but you almost can't lose. I mean, obviously, we have a whole podcast on players we thought were going to be the next great thing, Hall of Famers to pan out. But it's really a lot of depth at the offensive line and the wide receiver group this year.
Absolutely. And
go ahead,
Joe.
No, go ahead, sir.
Yeah, and if like it comes down to if you're willing to sit in, by all means, and pick. But what you're going to have to do is you're going to have to weigh it. If you're at this spot in the draft and you feel that the guy you want is on the board, they're going to have to make a move and get him. Because at some point, like I said, once you get past the DBs, once you get past the offensive linemen in the first round, those receivers are going to come up on people's boards and everybody's going to start salivating saying, I want that guy. And if you don't trust that the team ahead of you is not taking him, you're going to have to move up.
Yeah, for sure. That's the way of the world in the NFL draft right there.
Mm-hmm.
We don't want another situation like 2003 when we had the Vikings run out of time and missed their draft pick. One more thing for you about the Philadelphia Eagles I want to talk to you about, Thomas. You talked about getting Slay from the Lions. Is there anything or was there anything else you wanted to see them do in free agency that they have not done yet or didn't do?
Oh, well, like I said, we didn't address the offense at all. It would have been nice. I'm still waiting because I like what I see the vision in terms of Miles Sanders and Boston Scott in that backfield. I see Boston Scott as kind of a potential Darren Sproles type of player, with Miles Sanders still being the lead back. I kind of want another power back to get those third and fourth and short type of situations done for us. That's kind of something I want to see, especially in there. Just try to take the load off the Wentz as much as possible is kind of what I'm focused on.
No, okay, that's very cool. I see what you're saying because I said like the Cleveland Browns, Philadelphia Eagles have got to be one of those teams that thought last year was going to go one way and it went a completely different way. And I think enough. Hard for me to say as a Redskins fan, but I think that roster still has enough talent on it that if they make a few moves here or there, they can definitely be back where they want to be. And Carson Wentz being healthy, obviously, is priority 1 and 1A. Thanks so much for joining us, Thomas. Look forward to having you on the NFL Draft for our live show. Thanks for coming on tonight. Appreciate it, sir.
Absolutely. Fly, Eagles, fly.
Still recovering from the loss of Tom Brady. We have Mr. Ryan Cooley joining us, talk about the New England Patriots and what he thinks they should be doing with their draft pick they have this year also. So, Ryan, the Patriots come in with the 23rd draft pick overall. Obviously, the quarterback situation is still up in the air. I don't think, I could be wrong, that problem gets solved at number 23. Where do you see New England headed?
Well, with New England, they can go really anywhere. I mean, people have talked they could trade back if Bill doesn't like anybody at 23. They could go wide receiver because God knows they need it. And linebackers, they lost Kyle Van Noy, Jamie Collins, so they could go linebacker. I like Zach Bond out of Wisconsin. I think he fits well in the system and somebody Bill likes. But they could also, if a quarterback begins to fall, if Justin Herbert, who they've reports have said they're in love with, which I don't know how true that is, but if Tua starts to fall, they could trade up. So really, they could do anything and everything. I think it would be smart for them if they sit at 23 to take a linebacker to kind of fill up that spot where Jamie Collins and Kyle Van Noy left. And then you go, they have 3 third-round picks, so you can go tight end and then 2 wide receivers there if you need be. The draft class is that loaded with receivers. So, they could go anywhere. But like I said, if a quarterback starts to slip, especially Tua, I mean, I'm a big fan of Tua. And you look at past the top 10, I tweeted out yesterday, I have a feeling he could, there's obviously a better possibility of him being picked in the top 10. But if Tua falls out of the top 10 and you're looking at like maybe 12 to the Raiders, Bill could be calling. So, really anything's available for the Patriots to do.
They always make those moves. You just can't. You don't understand why people keep helping them. That's why the whole time during that dynasty, I was like, why do people keep giving away talent and giving these guys opportunities to just kick your butt later on in the year anyway? What are we thinking when it comes to New England this year, Jeff, in 2020 draft?
You're talking about the ultimate opportunist when it comes to the draft and the New England Patriots. And right now, if you're looking at their situation, they're not pressed to take a quarterback or move up or down the draft board. They're in love with Jarrett Stidham is what they've been saying. And if you have to believe them, they didn't make any moves last year to get a veteran when they had him back there. Right? So if anything happened to Tom Brady, it was Jarrett Stidham coming into a game for you. And at worst, Brian Hoyer. Okay, so they believe in Jarrett Stidham. So I'm not sold on them moving up. And as much as Bill Belichick loves his draft capital, I'm not sold on him moving up. I think he's going to wait to see who falls and let the chips play out. But don't be surprised, once again, if he goes to reload that defensive line. He wants that defense to be solid. He has a running game. He has Sony Michel. He has all those guys. He will go after receivers. There's plenty on the board, so he won't have to make a jump or move about that. And don't be surprised if he's sitting there at 28 and says, I have my quarterback. I only need a young backup. I have a veteran backup as it is. And you know what? I don't see anybody I want at 28, 29. I'm going to back up. And he will back out of the first round and acquire more picks and then load up on players.
Yeah, that's a classic Belichick right there. You're right about that. I can definitely see him going from 23 to those Patriots gave away the 23rd pick and picked up 2/5. And what? It's never. And he always gets a diamond in the rough in that situation as well. Hey, thanks so much for joining us, Ryan, and talking Patriots with us. Excited for the draft night, man.
Oh yeah.
Minnesota Vikings, man, talk about a team that had expectations and the expectations did not get met. We have Dominic joining us tonight to talk about Minnesota and what he's looking for in the 2020 draft from the Vikings this year.
So Minnesota is really interesting, and I think I'm one of the few people that this might be just how I see everything. I'm one of the few people that believes I don't think Minnesota takes a wide receiver in the first round. I think Minnesota, when you look at what happened to them this offseason, Minnesota lost Xavier Rhodes, Trey Waynes, and Everson Griffin. That defense is decimated right now, and they need to replenish that. I think with how deep this wide receiver draft class is, some people you can catch, maybe a Laviska Shenault or a Denzel Mims in the second or third round, something like that. I think in the first round, you need to replace Everson Griffin. So I say AJ Epinesa out of Iowa. Think he's a really good player, great off the edge, has that kind of grit and grind to him that you definitely need out in Minnesota in cold weather city. And when you're in the NFC North, you got, Nick Foles now in Chicago. You've got Matthew Stafford if he's coming back in Detroit, and then obviously Aaron Rodgers in Green Bay. You need someone who can go and get after the quarterback. So I think first round, Minnesota loads up on the defense.
Interesting. What do you think, Jeff?
I wouldn't rule out receiver, just because once again you had the Diggs trade. Thielen is once again one of those guys you're looking at now. Injuries starting to pile up. Is he going to be the same player? You paid him a lot of money. Eventually, he's going to become that cap casualty. Don't be surprised if they do go cornerback at that point. And it's not so much. They have their they're ready to move on from Rhodes. They lost Waynes, but although they were much higher on Hughes than they were Wayne, so they were happy to let that contract walk. But you will need depth at the corner position. They're definitely going to need pass rush. And if there's nobody they feel it's worth the value at pass rush, they'll wait around on that. But look for them to go either a D linebacker, defensive line, or corner first round. If they're not happy with that, they will more than supplement it with an offensive pick.
Yeah, that's a great point he brings up about the Vikings and the losses on defense, something a lot of people aren't really thinking about. I do have a question though, Dominic. Of course, you talked about Diggs being moved to Buffalo, so now it's basically Adam Thielen's show. Do you think he's a capable wide receiver one?
Absolutely, when he's healthy. That's Thielen. That's his only thing is, can you be healthy for a full 16 games? Because when he's there, he's dynamic. So I think offensively, yes, Thielen can be the guy. I do think they do need to get a receiver. We hear the rumors about the trade with Odell. We'll see what happens there. But like I said, I think Thielen definitely can be a number one receiver. Me personally, though, I think that they go heavy defense. Jeff, you talked about corners. It would be a little bit of a awkward situation because they just traded away his brother, but Trayvon Diggs out of Alabama is right there.
Yeah.
I think he'll be right there. And Trayvon is a home run hitter at the quarterback position. So we can see what happens.
Hey, it's professional sports. You got to leave your feelings at the house, man.
Right.
Leave your feelings at the house. Hey, thank you so much for joining us, Dominic. I appreciate your insight, man. We'll talk to you again on draft night, sir.
Yes, sir.
Man, the Miami Dolphins, chock full of draft picks. We have Bill Carroll here to talk about the Dolphins and what we could expect from them with one of their many first-round draft picks. How you doing there, Bill?
Mr. Bill.
Yes, hello. So first of all, just to dispel all of the crazy rumors about people doing something crazy, but it's that time people start crazy rumors. They're going to stay where they are and let Tua come to them. You're going to hear lots of crazy stuff, trade up, trade this way. No, they're going to sit where they are, and they're going to get Tua anyway.
Now, what else do you think that Miami needs this year looking forward in the draft? Man, I know it's an easy cop-out answer. They need everything, but what are their real key?
So I won't give the cop-out answer, but they could use a safety. They could use a slot corner. They could use a guard. They could use a tackle. They could use a defensive tackle. They could use and a linebacker who's good in coverage. So that's not everything, but it's almost everything. And of course, obviously,
well, the multiple picks they have this first round, they have a chance like the Raiders did last year. If you draft right, kudos to Mayock for what he did last year. But they can really plug some holes rather quickly this year. But you got to hit it right. Easier said than done.
Right. Here's what I will say. This is a good year to need a lot of things because there's a lot of things to be had. This is not a good year to load up and reach at one particular position. So if they do that, they have no one but themselves to blame because they've then damned themselves to wandering around in the third or fourth position in a very winnable division. Don't do that. If anything, once again, we just talked about why the Patriots so good because they don't do silly things. They don't. If it doesn't fit, don't force it. Don't try to find a player who isn't there. Take what's there. You fill needs in free agency. You draft for talent. You fill needs in you draft for talent. It works.
Yeah,
yes, they can find all the things they need. A guy like Logan Wilson, they probably could find somewhere in the second round. Would help them in their linebacker core. He's very versatile. He's a good athlete. He's smart. Somebody mentioned Kyle Van Noy earlier. He's sort of a Kyle Van Noy type player. And where did Brian Flores come from? Ding, ding, ding. Right.
Yeah,
so don't be shocked if it's not if you don't. This will be a very Patriots-ish draft. Don't be shocked if he's like, wait, is this the Patriots again? Yes, kind of. So if you think, what would the Patriots draft look like if they were drafting earlier? That's what they should do, and that's what I think they will do.
What about you, Jeff, when it comes to the Dolphins this year? A lot of picks, a lot of opportunity there.
Oh, yeah. Well, if you don't get the defensive player you want at that first pick, and let's say you're not in love with Tua at that point, you got to take the big man to protect whoever your quarterback is going to be. Right. And that's one of the things you have to do. And if you look at their moves in the offseason, none of the offensive line moves are long-term. I mean, they signed Eric Flowers to a 3-year deal, but Eric Flowers is not a statement for your offensive line. He's just an add-on. So you got to get that big man that's going to, one, keep your quarterback upright. And you got Mekhi Becton, okay? You have Thomas. You have Wirfs. You have your pick of tackles to take in the first round, early in the first.
Absolutely.
And if you decide to go early in the first at a different position, but you still want to find tackles later on, there are future starting left tackles that can be found fairly. Matt Hart, right? He's going to, at some point, be a starter. It might take him a couple years, but he's a future starting left tackle. Mm-hmm. There's 3 or 4 guys are going to be found somewhere in the 60, 70, and later that are going to be NFL starters at tackle.
No, absolutely. This is a big opportunity for the Miami Dolphins. I'm with Bill 100%. You come out this draft with swings and multiple swings and misses, it's all on you. Can't blame. There's no injuries in the draft. It's decision making. It's leadership. If they can't get this right, because you saw what Oakland did, I was impressed. Mm-hmm. There were guys they picked, and I was like, really, Renfro? That little kid? That little kid was a stud.
Well, Hunter Renfro, their 2 best picks in terms of value were Hunter Renfro and Max Crosby. The that bothered me a little, I mean, Josh Jacobs is a solid running back, but you can get a guy like Josh Jacobs later in the draft, quite frankly. Eno Benjamin's going to go a whole round later probably and be just as good.
Yeah.
I really was perplexed by at least one of their picks, because they had one pick where they could have gotten a super stud, and they said, okay, well, this guy's trustworthy, he's from a winning program. I get all that, but talent, yes. And he's a nice young man, but he's not a guy you take that early. Yeah. So they did well. And Abrams should also be really good this year if he can stay healthy, and I'm assuming he will. So they did well, and they got their guys, right? So they got their guys.
And we'll have to see what they can do but this year.
They could have gotten even more.
Well, thanks so much for joining us tonight, Bill. We appreciate it. Up next, we are going to have Keith, and he's going to talk about the defending Super Bowl champions, the Kansas City Chiefs. What else do they need? Seems like everybody the Chiefs could have lost in the offseason re-signed. There's no way they can keep Sammy Watkins. He's not going to take less money. He's gone. Sammy Watkins re-signed. Their star running back from the Super Bowl, he's a free agent. There's no way he's going to stay. He's going to leave. Everybody's coming back. Patrick Mahomes is the LeBron James of the NFL, basically. People will take less money to go play with number 15. So with all that being said, Keith, what do you think their strategy is and their approach is with the draft?
Surprisingly, they do need to fill some holes, or at least to future-proof that team. They were able to re-sign Breland as well, but I think he's only good for one more year. They lost they lost Reggie Ragland at linebacker. They're kind of in an interesting spot where they absolutely need a cornerback. That has to be their top priority. But they're about to pay Patrick Mahomes a lot of money, and they lost an interior lineman. So do you roll the dice and just pick the corner and hope that the best interior lineman is there in the second round, or do you super reach for that interior lineman in the first round and just bank on it being a deep draft for cornerbacks?
I toss that to you, Mr. Barnes.
Well, in the back end of that first round, there's still going to be plenty of cornerbacks. There's going to be plenty of linebackers. There'll be plenty of wide receivers. You never have enough of them. And with the injury history of some of their guys at wide receiver, you're going to need the depth. Granted, the young draft pick last year looked really, really good, but Tyreek Hill was just a hillbilly heartbeat away from being suspended last year.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to have a backup plan just in case something else happens. We all know the injuries of Sammy Watkins in the past. So you can only rely on 3 guys for so long in this receiver league where you have 3, 4, 5 receivers that have to contribute. They could always use more depth in the backfield. Granted, Shady McCoy is no spring chicken. And the other guys they have are all role players. There'll be plenty of dynamic backs with second round grade. I'll take a J.K. Dobbins. He's a guy who can run the ball. He can catch the football and pass protect for your soon-to-be $40 million quarterback. So there are plenty of options for them at the back end of the first round.
Oh, J.K. Dobbins would be a nice man. Andy Reid will have some fun with that. Get a couple of more mileage out of Shady McCoy, but also have Dobbins as a even dual threat. Have them both in the backfield together, or to spell Shady once in a while.
Mm-hmm.
That's a prospect if you're a Chiefs fan. For sure. What are your thoughts, real quick, Keith, on the overall top to bottom of the AFC West going into the next season?
I mean, for sure, Chiefs are the top. I mean, it's their division to lose. It would be an absolute embarrassment if they lost that division. I mean, the Raiders, I think, will be better this season, but not so much better that they will challenge the Chiefs for winning that division. As a Broncos fan, you get nervous when it comes draft time with John Elway. They have 11 picks in their draft. They have a lot. They don't necessarily have as many holes to fill as they need depth at a lot of positions. So you just get nervous with John Elway when it comes draft time because you just don't know what he's going to do. I think the Broncos will make a decent run at a wild card spot, but as far as that division, I would have to say it's Chiefs, Broncos, Raiders, Chargers. The Chargers is going to take a while to get that going again.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with you on that. Well, thanks so much for joining us tonight, Keith. We appreciate it, man. Excited to have you on the live show. It's going to be a good deal.
All right, see you on the live show.
Now, they don't have a first-round draft pick, but they are one of the iconic franchises of the NFL. And when we talk about the big ones of the NFL, you're talking Cowboys, your Redskins. I'd even throw in the New York Giants, but you also would throw in, before you talk about the Giants, the Pittsburgh Steelers. And for that, we have Dominic joining us tonight to talk a little bit about Pittsburgh Steelers and what he expects from the Steelers in the draft this year. Again, they don't have a first-round draft pick, but they're going to have a pick. You got Ben Roethlisberger coming back from the elbow surgery. You have Connor, who you hope is healthy, coming back. A lot of banged-up players for Pittsburgh. What's your take on Pittsburgh in the draft this year?
So when you look at Pittsburgh and the fact that team was able to go 8-8 with really what was their third and fourth string quarterback. Like, people forget that Pittsburgh traded Joshua Dobbs earlier on in the season. Joshua Dobbs was the backup. So they went 8-8 with third and fourth string quarterbacks back there. That did show, however, Mason Rudolph nor Devlin Hodges is the future. I think in this draft, you have to go out and you have to look at least maybe in that third round, where I personally think Jalen Hurts will be available. And I think if they can get him, have him sit behind Ben a year or two, I think that bodes well for them for the future. As far as their second round pick and just more immediate needs, you look at, they lost Javon Hargrave in free agency. They franchise tagged Bud Dupree. We have to see if they'll be able to get a long-term deal there with him. If not, edge rusher is definitely somewhere they could go. Also, Ramon Foster retired, so that offensive line is going to need a little bit of help as well. So there's some things that Pittsburgh is going to have to do this draft. They did a really good job, I think, in free agency and getting a more dynamic piece at the tight end position with Eric Ebron. I think bringing him in is a really good addition. But we have to see. There's some spots to fill, but this team, for the most part, if Ben is healthy, they can make a run.
Yeah, what do you think about the Steelers this year, Jeff?
It's a bad year to not have a first-round pick, especially if you're the Pittsburgh Steelers, with all of the holes they have to fill. And what we have to remember is, even when they had Roethlisberger to start the season, okay, the AB situation was never resolved. They never fully replaced that receiver. All they did was elevate the next man up. Okay, so you had basically your wide receiver 2, your wide receiver 3 and 4 as your main guys. All right. That was a problem. And it showed when Roethlisberger was in there and he was struggling. And you brought in the backups and expected it to get better. So you had to rebuild the wide receiver position. You don't have a first-round pick for that, but there's plenty of depth. Your cornerback situation, right? Joe Hayden can only play but so much longer, right? So you have to replace cornerbacks. That's deep, but you don't want to draft a starter in round 4. So, and then your offensive line, aging, you got to start to replace it. Defensive line, they patched some holes in free agency. But overall, when you look at this no first-round pick, they're going to start to look for guys that are going to be immediate contributors in round 2 and 3 because they have no choice. They have to come in and they have to play right away. So the biggest need is what they're going to fill in those first 2 rounds.
Now, a question I would have for Dominic and for you, Jeff, is this is the team that we talked about it last year with all these injuries and people missing games. They still were pretty much in this thing almost until the final week. So if you're a Steelers fan, are you being naive thinking that, okay, if we come back healthy this season, all we need is 1 or 2 pieces and we're right back in the playoff contention? Or is their lack of talent and the lack of depth in that roster a lot deeper than just that? It's not as simple as we got these 3 guys in the draft this year, everyone's healthy, we're going to be good to go. Is it more than that for Pittsburgh?
Well, me, myself, I will show my bias here a little bit. I am a Steelers fan. So when I look at them, I think the reason why, so I believe Juju Smith-Schuster can be a number 1 receiver. And I loved what I saw of Deontay Johnson. Deontay Johnson really stepped up. James Washington had a really good bounce back year because he looked like he was on his way. He was heavy. He wasn't making really the plays that we needed him to. He was on his way out of the league. He had a great bounce back year. But the thing that really makes me confident about this team is that defense. We don't have a first round pick this year. It's because we got Minkah Fitzpatrick, and I think he makes up for not having a first round pick. That defense is really solid with all of the pieces that they have there. You bring back Ben, who he said this is his first offseason where he's been working out and getting healthy and all that other stuff. So if Ben can come back, right, we're not going to talk about that part. But if Ben can come back and be healthy and get that offense to really just produce, not even at a really greater rate than they were last year. If they can just be a little bit more consistent, not turn the ball over as much, I think they're definitely right there in that playoff picture, especially with the expanded playoff now there's going to be 7 teams instead of 6.
You get the last word on Pittsburgh, Jeff. What do you think? Not that far away or more to that than I think it is?
It's going to come back to how fast the young talent contributes. As we talked about, you said Smith-Schuster taking the next step, James Washington improving, Deontay Johnson improving, right? But you're also going to need that out of the young offensive linemen. You're going to have to put out there and play because those older guys are just they're aging. They're starting to come to the downside of their career. Your quarterback, can he stay healthy? Regardless of what he did all offseason, can he stay healthy? Ben Roethlisberger's calling card is his big frame, and he takes a lot of hits to deliver the football. That is now starting to accumulate. So can he stay healthy? Is he going to get rid of the ball faster? Is he going to be available for, I'm saying 16 games now, because in a year from now, it's going to be 17 or is it 18? Yep. I'm getting lost in all of these new changes. But either way, you're talking about a guy who's the season's just going to get longer and longer. Is he going to be available for every game? James Conner, is he going to be available every game?
Yep.
So these are all questions that you have to address with depth, because if you don't have the depth, you're going to run into the same issues you ran into last year.
Interesting for sure. And like I said, one of the iconic franchises of the NFL, it's Pittsburgh. And it's like people say when the Lakers and Celtics are good, it's good for the NBA. When the Steelers and Cowboys and the Redskins are good, and even New England will say, and the 49ers, when those franchises are running on all cylinders, it's a good day to be the NFL. Hey, thanks, Dominic. We appreciate your insight, sir.
Absolutely. No problem.
Well, that is going to wrap it up for our NFL Draft 2020 preview show. We hope you guys will join us for our live show. Make sure you hit subscribe on YouTube, on our YouTube channel. You can also go to youtube.nutsandboltsports.com for our live reaction show. I want to thank everybody from Team MBS for joining us. Also want to thank Marissa with all the social and StreamYard. If you want to try out your own stream, you can definitely sign up by going to liveonsocialnow.com. Bengals.com. And we'll be back Thursday, 7:45 Eastern Time for our live reaction show of the 2020 NFL Draft.